This is Pod Populi, podcast for the people.
Hello and welcome back to Crystal Clear Moments. I am your podcast host, Crystal Blackwell. You know, I am super excited about today. I want to read a couple of my reviews that's come up on the podcast. First of all, thank you guys so much for downloading my podcast, because you don't have to, and you did, and I'm so grateful. And then you rate it, which is so awesome. So please rate and leave a comment. So I want to share some of the comments that I have here on the podcast that I think, really speaks to my guest and speaks to what we're doing here at Crystal Clear Moments. So I have one here that says, great podcast. This show gives you the opportunity to learn from others' moments and apply to your own life. And that's really what this is about, so I'm glad that some comment really captured that. And it said, Crystal's a great podcast host. Thank you so very much. And her guests have a bunch of interesting stories. So this really links up perfectly with my guest that I have here today. Her name is Sasha. So let me tell you about, every time I say Sasha, I might move my shoulders.
Oh, I love it.
Sasha, because
it's Sasha Fierce.
Yeah, because Sasha Fierce. But not only that, years and years ago, I've always liked that name, Sasha, like a kid. It's something about Sasha. It was sassy.
That's why everybody names their dog Sasha.
Yeah, really? That's why.
Oh my gosh, so many Sashas.
So you might get some, a little movement when I'm saying Sasha.
You do what you need to do. Yes, I'm here for it.
Yeah, I love it. And so I have Sasha here as a guest. Let me give you some backstory. So Sasha is a podcast host, and the really cool thing about podcast people, right, the community of podcasters, is that people are really friendly. And she was recording, I popped in, saw her, we just connected immediately. And I really believe what she's doing for the planet, for the world, what she's doing with her podcast is going to resonate with our Crystal Clear Moment podcast.
You just gave me a little
listeners.
chill, Crystal.
Yeah,
that felt so good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm interested, and I want the world to know about what you do. I know things about you, but I don't. So this is going to be fun for me, because sometimes I like to go in spaces that I don't have all the answers.
Sure, yeah,
And
that's brave of you. That's brave.
I know. Sometimes you just got to do it. You got to talk to people, and you have to uncover them, just organically. I think sometimes it just gets you just know too much.
I go the opposite way all the time, where I over prepare for things because that's my anxiety kicks in. And so I'm like, I need to know as much as possible. Right. So for you to say that's really, really impressive to me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I do have cool. Some things to catch me, but what I love about the Crystal Clear Moments podcast is it's really about uncovering your moment. So I can't necessarily script your world.
Right.
So
sometimes I wish you could. I think you'd be really good at it.
Yes. I don't know. Maybe so. So we're going to kick off with, one of my favorite opening questions is, Sasha, what crystal clear moment in life or moments got you to where you're at today? Tell us your story.
Ooh, that's a big question, isn't it? Okay, this is going to be a little weird, but what popped to mind immediately was, did you ever watch Schitt's Creek?
I did. I think I did maybe one or two episodes.
You have to give it more than that, because it starts out.
Is it a slow start?
A little bit.
Okay.
But once you get into it, you will not be able to stop. So there are these siblings on the show, and they are hilarious together.
Okay.
But
I do remember seeing the siblings. Yeah.
So at one point, they're both adult siblings, and they end up in this small town, and he's never gotten his driver's license. Grew up in New York City, has never had a driver's license, needs a driver's license. He's very, very, very nervous about going to get his driver's license. And his sister drives him to the DMV, and he is talking about doing deep meditation breathing to prep for this driving test. And finally she looked at him and she said, David, nobody cares. Right. And he said, he was like, I care. And she said, nobody else cares. And he said, well, the DMV guy, the guy who's giving my driver's test cares. And she said, no, he doesn't. And that for me, then that scene plays out and she explains what she means. And she said, other people aren't thinking about you like you're thinking about you.
So true.
Right?
Like when you get that, you are liberated.
So liberated, right?
That is a liberating moment. I remember having that moment, life-changing.
Incredible. Something you're like, nobody cares. I can do whatever I want. Right. Yeah. Like I can build a life that I love and that I'm passionate about on my terms because nobody else cares. I mean, obviously, like I want to build a life where I take care of the people around me and that I love people and support people and build people up because that's what I want. But as far as like me having a podcast or publishing children's books, like I get to do that because nobody else really cares.
Right, absolutely.
So there you go. There's my first crystal clear moment.
You know what? That's even more. It's a moment, and I think a movement because when you really settle with no one really cares, and not in a derogatory, negative way, like we don't love you, we don't care about you, but no one really cares. Why? Because they're carrying on their own. They're doing their own stuff. Right. They got their own.
We're all heroes of our own story, right?
Right. They're doing their own thing, and and they may think of you in a split second or two, but then they're on to their own.
Right.
Whatever that is, whatever they're doing in their village.
Right. Exactly.
They're working out that village thing, right? So when you get that, no one really cares. Then I feel like, and you jump right in. You navigate in the ways that supports, feeds, lights you, like you're in your purpose.
And then what does that turn into? Yeah. Well, then you can be a positive force for other people.
Yes,
right?
Yes,
and that's what I think most of us want is to be that positive force for other people. Yeah.
I believe that. Yeah. I was told once by someone that they didn't believe in purpose. And it's interesting because no one's ever says that to me. And I'm so I believe in purpose. I just believe that everyone's on this planet for a reason. Now, the reason is for us to uncover. And all of whatever it is meaningful. So there's no hierarchy. Like if you're here to be a brain surgeon or research, scientist for the cure of diabetes, it's just as important as someone who takes care of the elderly. To me, it's all the same as purpose. So it was a person who said, I don't believe in purpose. And I was like, oh. So I was like, what do you believe in? I don't believe in purpose. I believe I'm just here just to live my life the way I want to. I go, that's somewhat of a purpose. Your purpose is to live your life.
It's all perspective, isn't it?
It's all perspective. I mean, I had to go that direction because it felt like, I felt like, wow, you don't see the value that you bring to the world, to people, to the planet.
Well, I think
not even that.
A lot of times people get caught because they think, one of the things that drives me crazy in sports, because I do have a sports podcast. It's called Sports Will Save Us All.
Which I love that title, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
And we'll talk a little bit about that because I 100% believe it saves.
I do too. Yeah. And I hear it every single week. Every guest I have, sports are, they're an incredible unifier. They build us up. But one of the things that I don't like is this idea of finding your passion because I have found my passion over and over and over again, and they've always been different.
Yes,
and
always.
I think the idea that we have one passion, that it's, once you find gymnastics and that's your passion, then you're done finding. And no, of course not. Life is long.
Yes,
that we have all these opportunities and fruitful, but it's not if we sit at home alone in our living room and watch Netflix all day.
I know. But how do you get that person to even want to get out and find a passion, because, first of all, you and I are on a 10 of passion. You and I are both well put. 10 on purpose, and I mean, that's what attracted me to you. Cause iron sharpens iron. Right away, you and I exploded when we met each other because we're in the same, atmosphere. But what about people who aren't in this atmosphere, who are at home watching Netflix, chilling, and very content? How does that show up for you?
Well, I think that oftentimes that comes from a place of fear, that taking chances, especially if you think other people do care what you're doing, is really scary because you think that people are going to watch you fail and that people will take some sort of joy in that. And so I think that the first thing that you need to do is get beyond that fear. And
people don't care.
Because people don't care.
People don't care. And if they do, it's such a second
It's such a split second
they're
of
too busy. In their tribe.
But what do we see? What do we see all the time? We see people who have achieved a lot in the public eye, and then the way that the public loves to tear them down, right?
So you know what, Sasha, what came to mind is, even though we say people don't care, when you post on social media, it grows. Like, it leaves a footprint. So even if they don't really care, and then that moment when they do and they post,
lasts forever.
So I can see how the person at home sitting on the sofa watching Netflix could
like, this
really
is safe.
think, wow, if I do something, people are going to respond.
Right.
Because of just the way people, communicate now and share information. So what do you...
Yeah, no, I think that it is just nothing ventured, nothing gained. That the amount of life that we can enjoy and the new ways that we can enjoy it, we'll never uncover. I talked to this, I've told you about this off mic, this wonderful interview that I had that's coming up with this former Denver Broncos player. His name is David Bruton Jr. He was part of that legendary no-fly zone defense, won the Super Bowl and Super Bowl 50. And he was talking about failure and about how failure is inevitable. If you, if you go out there and you're trying things, you're going to fail. And I said to him, no. There's a really easy way not to fail, and that's to not try. And he said, but is that living? I said, I don't think so. Like, that's, for me, wouldn't feel like living. But, you have to decide for yourself what that's going to look like. And the beauty of it is that you get to, right? You get to make that choice. And whether it's, you deciding to go out and learn how to jog, because that's a choice, and that's changing who you are and how you feel about yourself and the endorphins that you have going through you, that's a chance, because there's a chance that you're not going to keep jogging and will feel like a failure. But if you don't take a chance, maybe you'll never know, right?
Right. And I think, so do you think, in your opinion, failure or fear, the fear of failure, it's something that's a learned behavior? Or do you think that, that's just kind of, sometimes as human beings, we show up with it? Again, this is just me and you talking,
it's a good question.
It's your opinion, and there's no right or wrong. I mean, it could be, but we're the experts right now.
Right.
Right? So we're going to define it.
All right. So here's what I think about this. It's interesting you asked that, actually, because I find it incredibly interesting to look at siblings and siblings who were raised in the same environment, who had the same parents, and that then they turn out so differently.
So different.
Where does that come from? Why is it? And then as a parent, I watch it playing out with my kids. I have 3 kids, and they're all delightful, wonderful humans, but they're really different from each other. They have different interests. They have different drive. They have different, like we said, passions, that they pursue, different things that sort of fill their cup. So, I mean, who knows? Like, maybe part of it is born and part of it is learned. That's my best guess, that we have so many influences that hit us every single day, and that those play in a little bit. And then, and maybe that we overestimate our own impact on our kids, that we like to think that we're their main influence, but there's lots of them, right?
Yeah, I think we are. As I was explaining, your perspective of the question, I started to think about, my godson who's 4. So he's learning, he's being shaped right now, shaping years. He's so cute, shaping years. And I've watched him go from, Mommy, I'm scared of just about everything, to, being courageous. And the whole time, though, the messaging from the parents is the same. Encouraging, you can do all things, but at some point he was scared, and he kind of hung there for a while.
Interesting.
And then now he's starting to not, and again, message the same. Kind of to your point that, sometimes it could be something that's in you. It could be learn, maybe a combo of both, but I'm always interested in fear, because we all will exhibit that emotion, fear for something. Doesn't mean it has to paralyze you. I'm scared a lot doing stuff.
Right.
First podcast ever, scared.
Shaken?
First 10. Every now and then I get like, oh my, just kind of gives you like, you need that adrenaline. But yeah, I just think that oftentimes, without trying, could be failure. But I think too, some people stay in that space, Sasha, where they're thinking about it. Like they're doing something internally. Yeah, they're doing some work before they take action. Mm-hmm. And I don't think we really capture that. Like all we see is, either you did it or not. But there's work before.
Right.
Like there's that mindset stuff going on. Mm-hmm. So all of that is going on before. And that could take a while. So that could be that person on the sofa.
Right.
Watching Netflix.
Right.
That could be
their pre-contemplative state.
Yeah, it could be absolutely that state, before they, let me go ahead and put my big toe in this water.
Right, I need to feel safe. I need to feel safe. Yeah, and I think it's part of why I would love what I do with sports is because I think that sports are a very natural place to learn a lot of those things. Yes, that you learn how to fail. You learn that if you lose or if you don't play your best, it's not the end of the world. Right, and that you can come back from that you can have a better game next week, and you learn how to be coached. Mm-hmm. And that's something that people take with them, throughout their lives is that learning how to accept criticism and learning how to grow from that rather than, feel completely defensive because that's hard.
Oh boy, the lessons that you learn in sports.
Yeah.
So now that we're here, I want to talk about, let's talk about your podcast and like, how did you get there? What was your crystal clear moment that you said, I want to have a podcast that says sports will save us all?
Right.
Like, when did that happen?
Actually, that's an easy answer, which is that happened about 2.5 years ago. Mm-hmm, and I had written this children's book. I've written a couple children's books, but this one was called Whitney Wins Everything. Mm-hmm. It's about this sporty little girl who just loves to win, right? And
I like her.
I know.
Miss Whitney, I like you.
So she struggles a little bit because not everybody likes that super competitive, particularly girl, right? That they're threatening.
Feisty,
and
I bet.
So feisty and so lovable, but also, loves to win. And so she doesn't get invited to this birthday party because the girl says, look, I don't want you there because you'll just win all the games. Mm-hmm. So, the end of the book, there's this, soccer game where she goes and plays and everybody thinks that she loses, right? And I'm like, oh, heck no, I'm not going to let this girl lose. Like this girl loves to win more than anything. So that was my first thing. I was like, this isn't a lesson book. Like this is not a book about that. But what she does do is pass the ball. Mm-hmm. And so I was on the publicity tour for this book after it came out, and my publicist had booked me on all these sports podcasts, and I loved it. I loved talking to these sports podcasters about sports and about the value of them and about my history with sports and what I do with sports now, like all these things about this fictional, child who I had invented. And so after the book came out and it did pretty well, I was looking around. I was like, okay, do I release another book? Do I publish another book? Or what's next for me? And I started thinking about these sports podcasts. Mm-hmm. And I thought, and then the title came to me and I thought, sports will save us all. Mm-hmm. And with it being, I think, undeniably such a time of division that was also where I really felt that human beings can still come together.
Absolutely. I agree.
I can talk to anybody about sports.
Right.
I don't care anything else about you. Like, I just want to, even if you are rooting for different teams than me, we have a common ground.
Right. And sports does a good job of giving us an example of diversity. Mm-hmm. And it gives a good example of being inclusive. Mm-hmm. And like when you see players together, oftentimes they put all that aside, team first.
Yep.
You know, and they're demonstrating this every Sunday, several times a week. We're seeing this all the time, and I don't know if there's a lesson always being played. Always being played. So I know both of my sons played sports, and my oldest son, I think a part of this is his DNA, but sports just heightened it and bolded and highlighted it for him. He is by far the most disciplined person I know. And I've said that for years. Since he was 6, 7, never missed a practice.
Yeah, where does that come from?
You know? Just and now he's a young adult, very disciplined. And I think sports really allowed him to really exercise that natural muscle of discipline.
Lean into that.
Right. It wasn't me and dad, I think we're disciplined, but his is at another level. And then my other son, my youngest son, sports for him, he was always confident, but it took his confidence to a whole nother level. Like he really believes in himself.
Yeah.
He really believes in who he is. Confident. He doesn't mind walking alone in the world in terms of ideas,
right?
And how he shows up.
He's bold,
very bold and very confident, but it's very other side though, not cocky. Because sports really doesn't make you cocky.
No, it's humbling. That's humbling. That's the thing with sports, right?
When you see people that do that, it's like, I don't know. It typically you don't, maybe at a high level, but for the most part, it could teach you some humility because you're going to lose something.
Well, not to mention, look at how sports progress, right? We tend to really peak when we're in our, teens or 20s in sports, right? Everything else, we're idiots when we're teens and 20s, right?
That you're good.
That you're good, but then it reduces. I talk to all of these athletes all the time who are like, you don't choose when to stop playing professional sports. It tells you, right?
Whereas it's gotta be the hardest lesson or the hardest here.
Oh, but conversely, have you ever felt better in your own skin than you do now? Right? Once we start getting older and we know who we are.
Absolutely.
Because we have no idea who we are when we're in our 20s.
Or 30s.
Or 30s.
Yes. Right. I know you start to form a little, but
right.
It takes a while.
It's a glorious feeling to get to a spot and be like, oh, now I know what you were talking about when you said to be who I am. I didn't know who I was then. Now I know who I am.
Yeah. My mom used to say that all the time. Be yourself.
You're like, I don't know what that is.
Like, what is be yourself? I mean, be yourself. What does that mean? Like, I am myself.
Right.
I was almost.
Who else am I going to be?
Like, what does that mean? But like to your point, when you get older, it's like, okay, I clearly know what she meant by saying, Crystal, be yourself. But it takes a while, and cognitively it takes a while to connect, So it all has to come together. And when it does, then you're like, this is who I am. I'm good. I'm going to always try to improve on the areas that I'm not, but this is what's showing up at the party.
I know. Isn't it wonderful?
It is. It is. It's a good place.
Good.
Yes.
Feels so good. So with sports though, I think that it's the opposite. You peak really early, you get really good really young before your brain has had sort of a chance to catch up. So if sports give to you what they've given to your son, which is this confidence to sort of bring those two things into alignment. Amazing, right?
Amazing. And it's amazing for me to watch it. And even though I know my husband and I, we've influenced it, I do know that. But sports really, really added value to them.
Did they crystallize it?
I think they are.
Did you miss my joke?
Yeah, crystallize it. No, I'm sorry. I think they haven't said that, but I do know they've had some crystal clear moments because they share, and as a parent, I've witnessed crystal clear moments that I've even learned from them. Yeah. And that's another thing about sports I think will save us all, because even though you may not have a sports athletic bone in your body, but as a spectator, a fan, or just someone who knows a little bit about it, you can really get some great
You're part of the
life
community.
lessons. Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
It is very inclusive if you allow it. So tell me one of your favorite guests that really shared a story about how it really saved them. How did the sports really save them?
Yeah, it's interesting because I have guests from all over the sports world. And I have I've talked to two different former professional football players recently, a former professional Phoenix Sun basketball player. So I have people who have reached just the pinnacle of sports. I also have had kids on the show. I have had, so it really spans all sorts of different things. Some of my favorite episodes to do are with people with disabilities who play sports. Yes. And I really firmly believe that sports are for everybody, that everybody, but also every body and every brain, that there is a place for everybody in sports. And So recently, I talked to a young woman named Rachel Kroner, who played wheelchair basketball at University of Texas Arlington. She was a D1 wheelchair basketball player. And, she works in prosthetics now down there at Hanger. Yeah, she has a master's and just a total dynamo. But she just is one of those people who makes you want to be better. That like talking to her just feels like she's got stuff figured out. And so she was one who I think was just incredible. I talk to people who have talked about sports literally saving them from one thing or another. Sometimes it's from poverty.
Oh yeah.
That's
common.
That's a very, very common one. Particularly here in the United States, that it is a route to, a much better life generationally for people, for people who play.
It's
and
a game changer economically.
And particularly now with NIL, that you don't even necessarily need to go pro,
Absolutely.
That if
you start making changes at 18.
Yep. So for anybody who doesn't know, NIL is name, image, likeness. So in the United States now, the Supreme Court has ruled that, college students can profit off their name, image, and likeness when they're playing college sports.
Finally.
So some of them, like Ashton Genty from Boise State, the running back, his valuation was $1.4 million for his senior year. So, money that normally would have been going to the university, right? Now.
And they're making so much money anyways. So,
right, the universities are, right.
Yeah, they're already, so it's not really, we're not cleaning them out.
Right. Yeah,
they're
exactly.
Still making tons of money.
Yeah.
And you know what? Sports is hard work. I know my son play at a collegiate level. It's hard work.
Well, it's a full-time job.
It is being a sports athlete,
a student athlete.
Yes. It's hard work. I remember when he was in school that I could call him on Sundays nights between 6 and 8 Eastern Standard Time.
And that was it.
Where I can actually have a conversation because everything else was booked up.
Yep.
But people have this perception that they have this wonderful life and they're
living the high life.
And they're not. It's this very stressful environment and it's very rigid.
Right.
So, I didn't know it until I was a parent, and
how could you?
Oh, wow, this is really this is a whole lot. And I met some of his friends. Both of my son's friends were sports saved them. In some cases it gives them a community.
Yep.
When they didn't have one.
Of course, yeah, and that's
especially young sports like high school and younger when they just want to fit in.
Yep.
And then they find a sports, and then they can fit into that community. That is life-changing for a lot of people.
Well, and I recently interviewed several people from Miracle League of Arizona here, and it was one of my it was my 100th episode actually, so it's been a little while now, but it was so wonderful because not only did we have a player on, Theo Whitehurst, who is the cutest thing you could ever imagine, little baseball player, but his mom came on also, and she was talking about that, the community it had given her, because Miracle League is for kids with physical disabilities and actually intellectual disabilities, and it gives them a chance to play baseball. Well, what happens with these families when they come to the baseball field all day? They meet all these other families who are in a similar situation, but they're not at a hospital. They're not in rehab. They're not at, occupational therapy. They're at a baseball diamond. So they get to just sit in the stands while their kids have a blast. Miracle League has set it up so that they can just stay there all day. They have everything that they need there at the field. And it's the community. It's exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. So that was another one that I really, really loved.
Yeah. That sounds like one that I could see myself lean into, because being a parent, and for years, 20-something years, sports, and my kids played everything. We kept them super active. My friends end up being, football moms, baseball moms, basketball moms, and then you have this whole world, and then they go off, and then you're like, okay, well, now it's time for me.
Yep.
Now it's my show. And
I'm starting a podcast.
Yeah, I'm going to do a podcast. Time for me to do my thing. So and all that goes away. But I also love about Sports Will Save Us All is that it's makes people pause and actually answer that question. I feel like that's more of a question, like sports will save us all. And I think internally people answer it. Like, yeah, it does. Like they start thinking about how it either showed up for them or how they've seen it show up for others.
Right.
And I can imagine people saying, it doesn't, but especially in American culture, Western culture, we are crazy about our sports.
I know.
We got to have it. My husband, even tonight, I'm like, it's date night. It's Friday. It's date night. And he's like, we're going to order out. I'm like, why? I want to go out. He goes, Ohio State.
It's football season, baby.
And I'm like, okay, date night has been canceled for Ohio State game. Now, you would think I'd be used to it after 30 plus years, Sasha, but I'm not. I'm still like, I don't know. I'm like, and he won't go to bar because, he has a potty mouth when he's, he loses his mind, girl.
You know what? Here's what I always say. I always say, put yourself in a circumstance where you can be successful.
Yes.
And it sounds like he can't be successful if he watches the game at a bar.
Oh, no.
So the living room it is.
I think I'm still going to work on it, though. I'm still working on it. So tell me a crystal clear moment where you saw where sports saved or even start to save, like you have kids, like would it show up for them?
It's interesting actually, because I think one of the things that I did not understand about parenting was that your life as a human being is separate from your kids' lives, which is to say, I grew up playing every single sport. Like, I think,
I can so see that in you.
It's not.
You're Whitney.
It's my husband calls me that a lot, actually.
You're Whitney.
My little alter ego. I grew up playing everything. I didn't play ice hockey and I didn't play lacrosse, but I mean, that's kind of it. Like, I have tried everything. I love that feeling of using my body for sports. And I still do. My husband and I play sand volleyball every week. We absolutely love it. And I just thought that would be my kids' future. Like, I thought we were going to be on all the travel teams and I thought we were going to be going from sport after sport after sport, right? And that was I did not see a future different from that one. And my oldest son did play a lot of sports, particularly basketball, which was always a big one for me. And, but then we had COVID hit, and right when he was at that, it was right before he started high school. And so that loused things up a little bit. Yeah. And, my other two kids, my younger, and so now actually just finishing his story, what he is absolutely passionate about is snowboarding.
Big sport.
He loves, but not a team sport.
Yeah.
It's
but
not.
You still got a lot of lessons.
But it's not a team sport. You don't necessarily have a coach, and he doesn't compete, I mean, he loves it, but it's more what I call a soul sport.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's something that you play because it feels really good, or that you do because it feels really good. My other two kids have not, they are also very, physically adept, right? So they are, they have a lot of proprioception. Like, one of them's a really good skier and likes to rock climb and he does kickboxing now, but again, not this team sport life that I thought we were going to have. So I think, to answer your question in a very long roundabout way, I think my crystal clear moment was when I recognized, oh wait, you get to do this for you now. This is your life. I had my turn and I get to have my life, and now
that's a huge crystal clear moment for a parent. I mean,
Massive.
Without that moment, you could lose.
You could be miserable.
Yeah.
You could be miserable.
And some damage can be done.
Right?
Really, like some,
And damage is done with kids and parents all the time.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and you can repair them. I'm not saying I'm a perfect parent, but when you look back, you can see, ooh, that really could have caused, some therapy. No.
Yeah, right. Oh, we're all for therapy.
Yeah. Couple sessions. Sign up. Yeah, definitely. But you know what? Even though they're in individual sports, it's still saving them.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? It's just it's showing up differently for them. They're handpicking what they want.
Right. And that's what we want for our kids.
We want that.
That's what we want. But then when they actually do it, we're like, oh, that's not what I thought you'd want, though.
Yeah, you were ready to go to the stadium.
Right.
You're ready to go to the high school games.
Right, yeah.
You were
have my matching t-shirt.
Yeah. Boosters. You were like down for that.
I was ready.
Girl, see, it showed up probably the opposite, because I didn't. I mean, I played sports in junior high. I was girl basketball. I was whiny and got mad if I didn't get put in. I mean, I was classic bratty girl sport.
I can't believe it.
Yes.
I can't believe it.
And if my coach called me out, I'm like, why did you call me out? And I want to play, and I won all the time. So I was not, and I was okay. I probably could have been better if my coach wouldn't have let me get away with too much. So when I had boys, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to like do this sports thing. So I struggled like getting in the loop of all of that. When I finally got
we
my
met
head
too
around
late.
it,
We could have just swapped, Crystal.
Oh my God. When I got my head around it, then I was like boosters and this and that. But initially I was like sitting there in the summer with an umbrella hot, like, I got oranges. I was good at bringing the snacks and the water and the little cool rags. And parents were like, why do you have cool rags? Because if I'm hot, I just know they're hot.
It's hot.
So I'm bringing cool rags for the kids. So it was totally, I didn't expect so much of my, parenting to be, I'm talking wrapped around sports, Sasha.
Right.
So
and that's how
flip-flop. We did.
Yeah, for
you were
sure.
ready for this.
Yeah, your kids lived my life, right?
Yes,
like just going from sport to sport, camp to camp, like traveling, we used to drive down from Oregon to basketball camp down at Pepperdine.
Oh my God.
Yeah, no, it's...
like it's a chunk of your world.
Yeah.
Wouldn't change it for anything. It's such a blessing. I feel so blessed. Thank you, God, for that experience. But I didn't know what I was walking into. My husband did, though. I think, behind the scenes, he laughed at me a lot because I was like, every Saturday we got practice. Every day.
Hold up now.
Yeah, I know, like,
who signed up for this?
Right, this is long. So yeah, that really, that's how it worked for me. So definitely we could have swapped. But I think it saved me. I was involved in their space. So how is sports, when you think about sports saving us in terms of culturally, how can we create a crystal clear moment? Right now it's so much division for, just it is, how can sports save us culturally? And now that we have all this division and very little movement to bring everything together.
Right. I think that we do it all the time. I think that it all just depends on where we put our focus. And I think that goes far beyond sports. But since, I do host a sports podcast, we'll talk in those terms. But I think that, what do they say? Like where the focus goes, the energy flows, right? And so I think that if what we focus on is the unity of sports and that competition and that healthy competition, because I think there is healthy competition, there's unhealthy competition.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think if we focus on the healthy parts and on the sportsmanship, in sports, outside of sports, wherever that is, that civility that the best sports encourage and support, that's where we find each other, that there's so much more that connects us. It's cliche, but there's so much more that connects us than divides us. And that really, what do we all want, right? We want to be happy and healthy and, get along with our families and have enough food to eat and have a fulfilling job. Like these are all common denominators for all humans.
Yes,
and we get so bogged down in these other things and we think those are the important things, and those aren't the important things,
Right, yeah.
What's important is playing a really good game against somebody and being able to shake their hand afterward, right? And last night, actually, I'll tell you a crazy story.
I love crazy stories.
This is a crazy one. So my husband and I play sand volleyball every Thursday night. We have this wonderful team.
Are you out there crazy?
Well,
you crazy out there, huh?
We're
You're
called the
diving
Marmots.
and carrying on.
Oh yeah.
I can so see
it's so fun. It's the best. I'm like, in my mind, like I'm friggin' Karch Karai out there. It's amazing. So, but we have a wonderful team, and it's been sort of like, do you remember the band Menudo? Where they like changed, like they've been around for 50 years, but it's like they just replaced these boys. Well, so that's sort of
what's still Menudo.
Still Menudo. So that's sort of what's happened with our team, the Marmots. Like we have had different people on the team over the years, but it's just they become our best friends, like just wonderful humans. Well, we played last night. It was our first game of the season after, so it ends right around Thanksgiving. You take the holidays off and then start up again. So last night was the first night, and the other team was just they were also going crazy. This guy dives for a ball, no kidding, slams into the upright, the post with his teeth.
Oh, no. Ooh, does he have any now?
Not anymore.
Oh,
It was so hardcore. Blood everywhere. Somebody from his team, like they get him off the court. Like I said, it's sand volleyball. They get him off the court.
Sand in his mouth, all kind of stuff.
One of the players comes running over, and we had run over to check on him, and she came over to check on him, or she came over where he had been lying, and is finding his teeth in the sand.
Oh
right?
my!
Like, to preserve his teeth in case they can reattach, or I don't even know.
Stick it back up in the gum. Ew!
So gnarly, but. It did really make me think, at that point, we said, okay, game's over. Mm-hmm. You guys take the win. Anybody who...
Take your W.
Anybody who knocks their front four teeth out, you win, buddy. But I was thinking about how just immediate that caring for each other was. That we all just rushed to this guy who was lying on the... It is the gnarliest thing that I've ever seen happen there at the volleyball courts. It was something. But he then sat for the rest. He didn't play the rest of the night, but he sat and watched the rest of the night with this big gap in the front of his mouth. I was like, that's some dedication.
That is some dedication.
Yeah.
There's a little trauma. I'm a little traumatized.
I know. Me too. Me too, for sure.
When your teeth come out, I don't think I would be sitting there. He was down for it.
It's the stuff of nightmares.
Really.
It's the stuff of nightmares. Yeah.
That commitment again.
Oh, that commitment. Yeah. And we were all, both horrified and impressed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I hope he gets his teeth put back in. His gums, and
We have a former high-level hockey player who plays on our team, and he immediately said, teeth don't come out that easy. Those must not have been real. Those couldn't have, I was like,
out,
yeah.
Especially if he's sitting on the sideline chilling, I can get these popped back in.
And but there was blood everywhere. So I was like, how does that work? And so sure enough, it turned out that at least a couple of them were at least crowns. Mm-hmm. They were, it wasn't like it was a bridge or something, but it was, but I found it so incredible that this other player of ours who has played hockey knew about dental damage so well that he knew exactly. He was like, oh, no, those are probably crap. Yeah, hockey players.
I think rugby, I went to a rugby game years ago, all girls rugby play. I think it was Scottsdale rugby team or something. I had a lady when I was working in corporate, she worked for me, and she played rugby on the weekend. So she invited me to go. I'll never forget how they were rough. I'm talking
rugby is something.
Ooh, it's like gladiators for real. People say football is like gladiators, but I think rugby, to me, to see a live game with women, I mean, there was blood and it's nonstop. You could break an arm. They're still playing. They'll drag you off there and put somebody in. Nobody's stopping for you.
Right.
But at the very end, the love they show each other is part of rugby culture. That so everyone at the very end, everyone shakes hands. They're hugging. They typically go out and for beer or whatever. It's kind of part of the culture of rugby.
Right.
The team, but during it's brutal. But after it's okay, we're cool. We're friends now. Let's all get together. So that was, again, how the inclusive sports is and how it's community driven.
Yep.
And to your point, how even though they were dragging people off, it's part of what it was, but they were following up at the end, how are you? And I definitely saw the love at the end, but not during. So it is interesting. I do agree. I believe sports will save us if we can really dig into the principles.
Right.
Just the principles of what sports is. You don't have to be a player, but kind of gather the principles. So I love your podcast. I love what it stands for.
Thank you very much.
I'm really glad that you were accepted and offered to be a guest on my show. So as we wrap up, I like to ask everyone, because now we're in 2025. So
can you believe it?
I know it. And
wow.
Everyone's feeling pretty good. I'm feeling like this may be a good year for folks. It feels lighter. I don't know if 24 maybe was a little heavier. I don't know, but it feels like it's going to be, we're going to make it. We're going to make it a crystal clear moment, positive year. So you tell me, what word defines you, either in this moment or this year? What word is coming to you? What's speaking to you?
I'm not somebody who normally distills things down to one word.
Look at that. So you know what? You could do a sentence But
oh no, now you challenged me.
Oh, okay. Whitney's back. I knew that Whitney is there.
There she is. She's like back and forth. It's so true. It's so true. Kyle, you know me so well. It's like it's a miracle. So I would say probably, and again, if I thought about this more, I might come up with something more original. But I think growth. I think that growth is something for my show. You know, my show has been growing a ton, which has been really, really fun. You know,
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. That has been, you know, I am sort of naturally competitive. And so to have something, because as an adult, we lose that, you know, that we don't have a lot of places. As a kid, you have all sorts of places where you can compete. And that feels good as humans.
And it's good to have that. It's good to have that competitive, even if you compete with yourself. Most of the time, you're competing with yourself.
Most of the time you are,
but
right.
Numbers help.
Yeah, well,
data helps you be very competitive.
That's it. And so you have something like a podcast where suddenly I'm like, oh, I'm in the top 5% of all podcasts globally, right? Like that feels really good. And so then you're like, okay, well, wait, what's it going to take to get to the top 3%? You know, how do I reach that next goal? And so I think that is that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Mine is so I have to share. I don't ask you yours, not share mine.
Please do. I'm going to steal it though, just so you know.
This popped up early November, so I don't know if that's my calendar year for me, but it popped up there. Resilience. Just having a quick bounce back.
Yep.
You know, and I always thought I did, but I think I'm preparing for just more growth, which is going to require to be more resilient.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
You know, so I think that very similar to yours. I'm planning, strategizing for more growth, which really spoke to me was, okay, you need to have the bounce back quality because you can't grow without resilience. It's like, oh.
You know what? I'm going to add a second one. Can I add a second one?
First time ever. See, Sasha.
Growth for sure, but also joy. I think joy is my other one because I
love that one.
Thank you.
I may have it too.
Please do.
Like joy.
Joy is amazing. And I think that we do get bogged down in the day to day and we forget to just be joyful. And
so I have a question for you.
Hit me.
Difference between happiness and joy. Because people are like, I want to be happy and happiness and this makes me happy. You know. Did I whine that one?
I kind of into it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Happy, but
joy
is a difference.
It feels different to me.
Yes.
Happiness feels more even and joy to me feels more like spikes. So for me, when I think of joy, I think of how much fun this conversation has been, right? This has been full of joy for me. And it will be a joyful spot in my day. I'm happy. Like I just overall, I'm a happy person. Like I have a great family. I have a great what
a blessing.
Yeah, I have all these great things. So if anybody ever asks me, I'm a happy person. Yeah. But to be joyful is to recognize those moments and to really to take the spirit of them and embody them a little bit.
You bet, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Such a weird thing to say, but
I love it.
Yeah, but I think to really feel that in your body, to feel that joy. So it's like happiness only on steroids.
I love it. And you know what? I'm going to end with that. That joy is happiness on steroids.
Boom.
And that's the only time I ever want to take steroids. Is to get my joy back. Okay, get my joy up there. I'm joyful, but I want to take my joy steroids. So Sasha, thank you.
You're wise.
So much for being a guest on Crystal Clear Moments.
Thank you for having me, Crystal.
Podcast friends, please remember to download my episode, right? Rate it 5 and type in some comments and you might hear me read your comment here on my show. So don't forget to do that. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on. This has been the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.